Hello and welcome back to the English Shooting live stream. Thank you everyone for joining. Please don't forget that if you enjoy this stream and you join in regularly, to hit that like button and make sure you are subscribed. But I hope you've all had a fantastic past week, and of course a happy new year. We're now into 2022. Good riddance to 2021 and on to bigger and brighter things. A little bit of trepidation, if I'm going to be completely honest, starting this stream. I thought it was a pretty sensible, obvious topic to go for, and so many people going, you know, this is getting highly political. Like, you just hold your fucking horses, all right? This is meant to be good consumer advice, as this seems to be quite a big issue at the moment. We have been covering it for the past few weeks, as has Field Sports TV, which is where I'm getting a lot of this information from, so please go and check out those videos. And of course, it won't just all be about this tonight. This is an interactive stream, so the regulars that have joined, again, thanks for regularly tuning in. But for anybody new watching, put your comments in, bring up topics, ask any questions you want, and I'll try my best to get back to you and answer as many as possible. But yeah, let's get into this main topic. So, of course, as we've been covering, there's been an abundance of revocations. Well, an abundance of seizures of firearms within Devon and Cornwall, combined with all of that, with various other licensing departments shutting up shop at the slightest sign of a cold. But Devon and Cornwall are really just putting themselves into overdrive with all of these seizures. We've seen a number of them covered on Field Sports TV for the most seemingly mundane reason. There was somebody that got a speeding ticket, armed police at his door to take away his firearms. We had somebody that, under all this review of Plymouth, because of course that is the main driver, even the armed police that are turning up to the door to do these seizures are quoting the Keyham Shooting. There was somebody 10 years ago that had a disagreement with an ex-partner. That got dragged up, had never been investigated, never been looked into, but suddenly they've looked into it and seized all their firearms. There was somebody that I think had a dispute with a neighbour, or there was an allegation of assault or something like that, which again was never followed up, never looked into, but then they came and years down the line they come and seize the guns based on it. I've been saying for a very long time, and people seem to be beginning to believe me, that you are not exempt from this. No matter how squeaky clean you are, no matter how good your character is, no matter how much you stay out of trouble, you can get that knock on the door. You can find yourself in a situation where you have the police asking for you to either voluntarily surrender your firearms or issuing you a revocation. This stick your fingers in the ear approach of, it will never happen to me, I never put myself in that situation. Just don't be an idiot. It can, why do you pay for house insurance? Okay, it's a mandatory requirement for, to drive a car in the UK, but why do you pay for other insurances if you're not thinking about the worst case, right? Why are you wasting hundreds of pounds on home insurance if you don't want to protect yourself from the absolute worst case, no matter how slim that chance is of everything burning to the ground and you losing everything? Because that is what is going to happen if you don't have the forethought of what to do in the situation of if the police come asking for your guns. And some may be disappointed watching this, but no, this isn't America. You can't just stand there and go, this is my right, get off my property. We don't have the right to bear arms as we do in America. Things are very different. And I'm not going to sit here, as some suggested, and say, you get into some battle royale with the police. Don't be so idiotic. You have to take things rationally, and there are a number of rational, calm, level-headed things that you can do to protect yourself, prepare yourself, and also how you conduct yourself if that situation happens. The first thing that absolutely every certificate holder should have, or anybody that is even remotely thinking of applying for a shotgun and or firearm certificate, is legal expenses insurance. It's not expensive. Go and get it. There is no excuse if you're even if you don't intend to get a certificate and you go shooting, be it with a friend, just at a club, you don't even have the intention of ever owning your own firearms, you're going to borrow them under the various exemptions that we have, go and get legal expenses insurance. That will give you the opportunity and the financial ability to have somebody to fight your corner if the worst happens. There are an abundance of places that you can go and get insurance from. Unfortunately, Basque is no longer one of them. It was a big reason as to why I stopped my membership with them. And as a side note, I have been weighing things up because I've been quite impressed with them over the past year and what they're doing and how they're seemingly reacting to this at the moment. But that's sort of another story for another day. But they don't offer legal expenses insurance. They will offer, you know, help and guidance if it happens, and may put forward some money to defend your case. There are many others. There is Gunplan. It is a private insurance company. That's all they do. They cover you for your shooting equipment, you know, like public liability, and also legal expenses insurance for both a failed application and also for a revocation. And this is why I say get it before you even apply, because I've seen a number of people think, oh yeah, I'll have no issues whatsoever. I don't have a criminal record. I've never got myself into trouble. They go to apply and something comes out of the woodworks. They get refused. It may even be a wrong refusal. And then they've got to go and spend thousands of pounds launching an appeal to be able to justify or explain why the police are wrong. So just get it straight away. Gunplan, I think, is 30 or 40 quid for their all-inclusive, all singing, all dancing package. You've got the CPSA. The CPSA is a slight sort of tricky one because they only cover shotguns. They only cover shotgun certificates and shotgun shooting because they're the clay pigeon shooting association. However, if you're applying for a coterminous, and apart from having to obviously spend a probational period at a club, there's no reason to not get both. So, you know, if you're going for a firearms certificate and you don't already have a shotgun certificate, go for a coterminous, go for a dual certificate, as it were, and then the CPSA's legal expenses insurance will cover you, because to sort of save you from having the revocation or to save you from having the refusal of a shotgun certificate, because it's a coterminous, they in essence have to save you and help you with the firearms certificate as well. The National Game Associate, what the NGO? I know them by the NGO, the National Game Organization. Let me National Gamekeepers Organization. Yes, the National Gamekeepers Organization. The NGO have just released new insurance. It is an add-on insurance for legal expenses, just like I think Basque should have done. You know, instead of stopping it completely, you can go to them now and get yourself covered. And there's a myriad. I could spend the rest of the night talking to you about how many there are. Get it. It will be £30 to £40. For the CPSA, it's like 70 or 80 quid because you get a full CPSA membership. The UK PSA as well also offers some level of legal expenses insurance with their membership, but you do need to check that it covers both the refusal to issue and a revocation, and you 100% want both. I'm so prepared. I have both the CPSA, the UK PSA, and also Gunplan. It's sort of like, you know, covering all bases there, but one of them will be able to help me in the situation that I have a refusal for application, or if I get my certificates back in the case of a revocation. Don't plan to do that a second time, if I'm going to be completely honest. So that is the absolute first port of call before you do anything. Of course, now we want to talk about what happens when they knock at the door. What happens when the police turn up out of the blue, as we are seeing left, right and centre in the moment in Devon and Cornwall, and demand in the most recent Field Sports channel video, and I'll bring that up now. I'll just get to it. I had a little bit of a dropout there, but never mind. Let's try and find it. We've got Sony. So let's bring up the video. I'd highly recommend going and watching this, because if you don't think it's going to happen to you, if you don't think there's going to be an issue, then go and watch this video. These are the police turning up, knocking on the door to come and take the firearms. So there's a whole backstory to it. I won't go into it. There's more that we're going to be talking about from this video, but shooter stops police to seize his guns. This is the first time that we have seen a shooter successfully stop the police, and they make a very good point, which is something, well, I would say the first thing that you need to do as soon as you get that knock on the door is to find out whether they are revoking, or they are asking you to voluntarily surrender. So I'm just making a couple of adjustments to the settings. Hopefully that will fix any dropouts. Might have been perfectly fine, but it was flashing red at me. So there's a very, very big difference between having a revocation and having a being requested to voluntarily surrender for the purpose of review. There are many differences from the level of protection you're going to have to what you can and can't do. What's going on at the moment with Devon and Cornwall is they're obviously reacting to the Keyham shooting. They're going back, crossing the T's, dotting the I's, and making sure that they're being overzealous effectively. I mean, Field Sports Britain actually called it authoritarian action, but they're going around and being absolutely double sure that everybody that they've given a certificate to is actually of fit character, and I think they're going a little too far. In the cases that we've heard of so far, they are all voluntary surrenders, and I think they're actually being very, very dirty in the way that they're doing it. It's very intimidating, having the police turn up to your house anyway and then demanding for your firearms, and I think the wording that keeps being used is, "We have come here to seize your firearms." Now, there is no legal basis in terms of the terminology of seizing within the firearms law. It is a voluntary surrender or it is a revocation. And I think the language that the police are using, the sort of all gun blazing approach with the armed police turning up at your door and demanding the guns, is that it's actually a voluntary surrender that they are requesting, but they're doing it with intimidation. And the majority of shooters and the majority of firearms owners and certificate holders are thinking, I have armed police in my house, they're demanding my guns, I need to hand them over. If you ask them, are you asking me to voluntarily surrender my guns, or has a revocation been issued? If it's a voluntary surrender, they are asking, they're not telling. Now, I made a whole video on this a number of months ago about the pros and cons of complying with refusing. You are fully within your rights to refuse a voluntary surrender. My advice, and what I said in the video, is I think in the long term it will always look better to comply with a request to voluntarily surrender. And now we dropped out. Where are we going? Are we back? It's been good for weeks and now it's all dropping out. Give me a sec. I'm playing around. I don't know why. It's been absolutely good of gold the past few weeks, so sorry about that. So yeah, when you have the request to voluntarily surrender, of course, as a firearms certificate holder, as a firearms owner, you have to be of good character. They expect you to be compliant and also to be to work with the police and to comply to their requests. It could be used against you if you refuse. You're not showing cooperation, you're seen to be difficult. That could come back and be used against you if it leads to a revocation. What we have also talked about more recently is actually a number of firearms specialist solicitors are getting to the point where they're thinking of advising, or very close to advising, their clients to not cooperate. Because what's happening is when you voluntarily surrender your firearms, you have no right of appeal. You also have no cover under any legal expenses insurance. Because you have voluntarily handed them over, well, that's in essence your choice to comply. So legal expenses insurance are going, well, hang on a minute, why are we going to fund a legal battle here when you gave them to you, when you were the one that gave them the guns? There's sort of nothing to fight there. You did it. But then you end up in this black hole because there's no set out process and also no set out time frame in a voluntary review or a review to take place after a voluntary surrender. You can end up in a black hole. And I've heard and I'm aware of people that have spent 18 months, 2 years in this review period after voluntarily surrendering their firearms. Unlike a revocation where instantly you have the right to appeal, a court date will be booked. It may be 6 months, maybe even 12 months down the line, but a court date will be booked and you will have your day in court. If you have a revocation, then you trigger all of your legal expenses insurance. You will have a solicitor, you will have a barrister, and also most of the organizations that offer these, just as Basque used to, but I believe the NGO will as well, their specialist firearms team will support you and they will guide you and they will help you. And this is the way up, the unfortunate way up that somebody has to make. Do I be a good boy? Do I be cooperative and be the model firearms or firearms owner or certificate holder and comply and end up in this 2-year black hole with having to fund solicitors and legal aid myself with no guidance, with no help, and just hope that I come out the end of it better? Or do I say to them no at the risk of having a revocation? Because even saying no to them on the request to voluntarily surrender your firearms, it isn't automatically going to lead to a revocation. You may be lucky and they may go, actually, we don't have enough grounds to revoke here. We were sort of asking because we wanted to cover ourselves, but we'll leave you be. There's a chance that that happens. Worst case, you end up with a revocation. And you could sort of say that you're really no worse off because they take the guns anyway. If you'd have complied with the voluntary surrender, you would have ended up with no guns, black hole, all that. So it's incredibly complicated, and it's a very difficult way up in the moment. And this is why I say to people, get it in your head first. Which route are you going to take? And have that clear. Which consequences are you going to deal with, either complying or not complying with it? Again, my advice would always in the long run be that it's going to look better to comply. Having a revocation of your certificates, even if you successfully appeal it, you will always have to declare that revocation. So if you push the police into a corner where they either have to leave you alone or revoke, more often than not they go for the revoke. But what's interesting about this story from Full Sports Channel TV is that the guy said no. Now first of all, the other way that obviously they can't actually come in and take your firearms under the request of a voluntary surrender is because they don't have a warrant. They don't have lawful authority to enter the premises to be able to take hold of the guns. Very different when the revocation letter has been issued. And this is what this guy did in from this Field Sports Channel TV video, is he said, no, you're not coming in. Do you have a warrant? Well, no, I don't have a warrant. Then you're not coming in. And basically said to them, no, I'm not giving you my guns. As much as it was presented to him like they were there to seize them, they were taking them, and that he had no choice, he knew from previous experience that he didn't have to comply. He told them no, he didn't give them entry, and told them to go away. And as far as I'm aware with this case at the moment, he still has his firearms. A revocation wasn't issued. And to me that asks a load more questions and is a far bigger concern, because why are the police going around and taking guns if they're not prepared to revoke? If they feel that they have justification to ask for a voluntary surrender, surely they have the justification to then issue the revocation. If they're going around like pretty much willy-nilly going around asking for people for their guns, it very much looks like they're chancing their arm. They're just trying to take as many certificates away as possible. And I think actually highlights that they have very little justification to be doing that in the first place, because otherwise they would revoke. Now, I might potentially eat my words on that. It may turn out that this guy ends up getting a revocation, but we will have to wait and see. So that's really what you need to ascertain, whether they are there to voluntarily surrender, whether they are there to revoke. If they are there to revoke, there is nothing you can do in that moment, and that is probably one of the hardest things. It's now completely out of your hands. The decision has been made. The police are taking your guns. And again, throughout all of this, no matter which avenue you decide to take, no matter what you want to do, and what the circumstances are, always be polite and courteous. That will always go a long way. At the end of the day, if they're asking you to voluntarily surrender your firearms, or they're there to revoke your certificates, it's because they feel that you are of no longer fit character, or that you pose a danger to the public in possessing those firearms. If you go off on a screaming, shouting, cursing tirade at them, that sort of proves their point. So you want to still be the model citizen. You don't need to shout. You don't need to get aggressive, and it's really not going to help you, right? It's not going to help you, and it is going to be used against you. And I did see somebody mention that this is one of the tactics that they may use in trying to enter your property forcefully without permission. How do you stop a police officer that is coming into your house without using force? When does that force become assaulting a police officer? So it's always best to sort this out after the fact. If the police are determined that they are coming in, whether with justification or not, whether they have authority or not, don't get into a scuffle with the police. Don't be there hugging your safe like some tree hugger, saying you won't take me alive. It's just not going to do anything. You're most certainly going to prove their point, and even if they didn't have justification in the first place, you are going to give them everything that they need to continue with the revocation. Be polite and courteous. If you choose to not comply with the request to voluntarily surrender your firearms, do so politely. You don't, again, need to tell them to fuck off or scream at them. Just say, look, you're asking me, and I'm politely declining. Unless you have a warrant, unless you are issuing me with a revocation, I'm not prepared to voluntarily surrender my firearms. It's, again, whatever you want to do is up to you. Personally, I would comply with it, because it can all be sorted out if you've got deep enough pockets and a good solicitor. And again, this is the major issue, that in complying, and this is why solicitors have said to me that they're looking to advise not to comply, is because there seems to be no benefit, right? There seems to be you end up at the bottom of the pile. You end up with no legal expenses, insurance. It's like everything is stacked against you, obviously, apart from being seen to be a model citizen and a model firearms owner. So why do they ask you to voluntarily surrender your firearms? From what I understand, back when this sort of was all introduced, was certainly, let's say, 5 or 10 years ago, before we saw what was happening at the moment, it's a halfway house. And what it's actually meant to be a sort of a kind gesture from the police, which is like, look, we might have enough here to revoke your certificates, but we don't want to do that, because that's going to probably end up in court. That's going to be a black mark against your name. There's a lot that both sides have to do in order to do that. And what it's meant to do is be like a sort of a cooling off period. Look, we're not going to go through the hassle of revoking, but surrender your firearms, surrender your certificate. We're do this review, and the review is just looking at any complaints that have been made. It's there to be a stop. If suddenly concerns have arisen from complaints, or your own behaviour, or something you've said or something you've done, then instead of, again, coming in all gun blazing, even though that's what they're doing, they say, look, just pause everything for a moment, hand us your certificates, hand us your guns, we'll look into it. It will give us time to look into it, and then hopefully we're going to be okay, we're going to be fine, we'll give everything back, and then everyone can go on with their lives. You don't have to declare a voluntary surrender. You don't have to mark it on any future applications or renewals or variations. So it is seemingly done for the shooter's favour. Unfortunately, what seems to be done more often at the moment is that it is abused. It is, the police know that there's very little somebody can do. There's no appeal process. There's no legal expenses insurance. So they almost use it as like a worst case. They almost don't want to revoke because then they know certain protections come into play. And it's such a shame to see that. And it genuinely is a shame to see that shooters are now having to not comply with the police because they don't trust them. They don't trust what they're going to do with the firearms. They don't trust that they're going to conduct these reviews in a timely manner, in a fair and honest manner, and that they're not going to be waiting 2 years to have a revocation anyway. So it's all very complex. I think I've tried to give both sides there and the pros and cons. It's a very, very difficult decision, but have a think about it and have in your head what you're going to do, and also how is that going to be presented to the police. The other issue with, of course, when they come and take your firearms is what actually happens to the firearms. Now, something that you have to remember, that if you have purchased those firearms with a firearm or shotgun certificate, then they are legally yours. Even if they revoke your certificates, those firearms are still legally your property. Nobody other than you can decide what happens to them. The police cannot destroy them without your permission and without your consent. Unfortunately, what we are seeing from Devon and Cornwall at the moment is that the police are refusing to release these seized firearms. People that have complied with these voluntary surrenders, and they're refusing to release them to registered firearms dealers. Now, I experienced this kind of myself, which was with the when I had my revocation and also my appeal. The police did not want to release the firearms until after the appeal. Fortunately, and this is something that both my legal team at the time and BASC were very good at, is they were like, well, no, that's his property. He can decide, this isn't a criminal investigation. Those firearms are not evidence. They're his property. He should be able to decide what happens to his property. So we were able to get the police to release them, and I had them stored with an RFD, one that I trust. I knew the guns were going to be looked after and cared for, and they weren't going to end up in a big pile of rust. Unfortunately, Devon and Cornwall don't seem to be accommodating. But if I was these people that have had their ticket, well, they've surrendered their tickets and surrendered their firearms, I would be getting BASC. I would be getting whatever organisation is representing me, whatever legal team is representing me, to be firing letters left, right and centre at the police, and I would make it abundantly clear that any damage to that property will be pursued. And this is another thing in forethought and with foresight that you should be doing, is regularly documenting the condition of your firearms. Even though it's all on your firearm certificate here in the UK in terms of the make, model and serial number, you should have your own private log. You should try and keep as many receipts in terms of the value and purchase price of those firearms, and I would recommend taking potentially even annual photos of those firearms in terms of their condition. When they came and took my firearms, I've said this before, he ended up dropping, he ended up dropping the barrel. So my Silver Pigeon 1, incredibly sentimental gun. It was my sort of 21st birthday present. It was the first live firearm that I'd ever bought, and it's something that I intend to pass down the family for many generations to come. So I watch him handling the gun that he had absolutely no idea. This is a trained firearms officer or armed police officer, absolutely no idea how to handle the firearm, and drops the barrel onto the stock. Until this day, until this day, I still have the dent in the side of the stock that it was caused. So if they are going to take your firearms, I would highly recommend filming the process, and I would also have photos to document condition, because if you don't have anything to document, if they hand you back a bucket of rust with dings and dents and scrapes and chips and cracks, how are you ever going to prove what the condition of those firearms were? And it's certainly going to help you a lot in pursuing for damages and also getting compensation for any damage installed. But you have to remember that you have a legal claim on that property. It is your property. You purchased it legally when you were... you had the authority to be able to do so with a certificate. That is your property. You should be the one that chooses where it goes. It would, again, with a bit of forethought, it would be good to have an RFD that you can call and they can come and get it if at a moment's notice. Most RFDs, certainly if you've been shopping with them for years, they know what the situation is with these. They know that it's the absolute worst case scenario for a firearms owner, for a certificate holder, and most RFDs will go above and beyond to help you out and to get the gun safe and to make sure that they are being treated as you would expect. But it's always worth just having that conversation with them and saying, look, do you store firearms? Let's say, I don't expect it to happen, but can I call you at, office hours, open, out of hours, whatever, and would you be prepared in that situation to come and collect the firearms? And just have that, just know which RFD you're going to go to, where they're going to be stored. And what's also happened with this specific case of the person refusing to voluntarily surrender their firearms is that they've sort of seen the writing on the wall. As I was saying, it's sort of refusing usually does then lead to a revocation anyway, so he's sort of expecting the revocation to come, so he's actually put all of his firearms with his RFD, so that they can't be taken. They can still revoke his certificates, and they can instruct the RFD to then not let to not release the firearms back to the previous certificate holder, but at least it's them with an RFD. So I think that's covering pretty much everything about when the police come to take your guns. I can tell you from first-hand experience, it is not a pleasant experience, and when it happened to me, I was very wet behind the ears, not at all clued up on the processes of what happens and what you can do, what you can't do. Funnily enough, I never actually had the opportunity to refuse the voluntary surrender. I was actually given the opportunity to voluntarily surrender, and I think I've told this before, but the circumstance was I was asked to voluntarily surrender my firearms based on a allegation made against me. I'd already been told that no further action was going to happen on that allegation, so it's like, okay, right, good, I'll go home, nothing to nothing, no further action, nothing more is going to happen. But the police, they wanted to check, they wanted maybe a little bit more time to weigh things up, so they asked if I would voluntarily surrender my firearms. I didn't say yes and I didn't say no to that request. What I asked is whether that review could be taken place that day. What I didn't understand that they wanted some time, that they wanted a few weeks, maybe a couple of months to conduct this review. Very naive of me, I thought, well, hang on a minute, just give me the phone, let's talk to firearms licensing, let's have a bit of a chat, let's smooth this all over. Look, you said there's no further action here, there's really nothing else to be worried about, I don't have a criminal record, so can't we just get on with everyone's business? So I said, my request was, can that review happen today? And I never got an answer to that question, because next thing I know, I'm being given a revocation. So again, that's how quickly it can escalate, even without saying yes or no, even without complying or not complying, even just asking them, well, can the review happen today? Well, you're not saying yes, you're not complying with the request to voluntarily surrender your firearms, so here's a revocation, and we'll get on with it anyway. So it will escalate very very quickly. And then, of course, once you have a revocation, they are, as I said, they are taking the guns. They are coming to your home. They are going to be taking them. It doesn't matter at that point if you've been issued a revocation, whether you want to comply or not. It's happening. So, you know, it might sound, and I know a load of Americans out there are going to, I don't know what, they're going to probably just either collapse in fits of laughter or roll their hot eyes so far in the back of the head they pop out. But I actually helped the police carry my firearms out of the house, right? That's, you know, as far as I was concerned, like, they had made a mistake. I still believe they made a mistake. You know, I've had regular access to firearms over the last 5-6 years and I haven't hurt anybody. I think that goes to maybe say that their judgment of me at the time wasn't strictly correct. But anyway, another topic, another discussion for another day. So yeah, I actually helped them, and that was more of a preservation of watching this guy drop barrels onto a nice walnut stock. Like, these guys don't know what they're doing, so I would rather help them out the house with my stuff to make sure no further damage happens. So again, there's, like, I feel back then I couldn't have been more cooperative. Whilst it was taken that I was refusing to cooperate with the voluntary surrender, that was not my intention at all. I really had no grasp of what was going on back then. And then once they said, look, here's a revocation, we're taking them, it's like, well, okay, like, I still don't understand, thought no further action. But yeah, all right, take me to my house, I'll help you with them, you know, whatever. And I was good as gold, as far as I was concerned. But you know, obviously, they had other thoughts. Why did you have to surrender your firearms? So I think so. People asking what an RFD is. Sorry, it's a registered firearms dealer. To be able to sell guns, to be able to have a business, a commercial business around, or to commercially operate around firearms in the UK, you need to have a registered firearms dealer certificate. And that allows you to buy and sell guns, and it's far less restrictive than our Section 1, Section 2 firearm certificate or shotgun certificate. Why did I have my why did I have to surrender my firearms? It was, as the judge put it in my appeal, it was an accumulative effect. So I'd had a false allegation of assault made towards me. I'd been arrested for that, questioned, and then released with no further action. It was the police, as far as they, I think pretty much word for word, look, we know what's going on here. We don't have any concerns or any belief that there was any criminal actions by yourself. So we're going to let you go with no further action. So no criminal, wasn't even caution, no criminal record whatsoever. So that was the catalyst. That was really what flagged the revocation, as it were. And then the reason that I don't have certificates was because I, when I went to the appeal, whilst obviously we talked about the allegation of assault, they weren't really worried about that, because what they were more concerned about was content that I had put out on this channel. And I believe it was all around, there was a video that I made around the Paris attacks, where I basically asked the question and said, look, out in France they can have handguns. Why is no one sort of asking the question here of why they can't be carrying handguns to prevent against these shootings? This was back in late 2015. Of course, there was the Bataclan, there was Charlie Hebdo, and various other attacks within a very short amount of time. And there were all these calls for further gun restrictions, further bans, and it's like, well, hang on a minute, they committed these atrocities with fully auto AK-47s, which are not legal to own in France. They were smuggled in across the border. What is more gun bans going to do? And I raised the question of self-defense, and I raised the question of using already legally held firearms for the purpose of self-defense. This was taken to be questionably a fanatical view. They took it that and the exact phrase that I used in the video, which, trust me, if I could go back and change, I would, because it was not meant to be taken as this at all. But I used the phrase, you have to fight fire with fire, right? And what I meant with that is maybe a concise version of, The only way you stop a bad guy with a gun is with a good guy with a gun. You fight fire with fire. What the police, what firearms licensing, what the judge and magistrates took that to mean, as they plucked that phrase out and just sort of played it on repeat within the court, was that I was calling for vigilantism, that I was calling for firearms owner, not just in France but also within the UK, to take up arms against terrorists and start going terrorist hunting. And it was a fanatical sort of call to arms, as I think they put it. So that's not what it was at all. Whenever I talk about firearms, I always talk about it in the defensive aspect, because I want, in general, I want people to be able to defend themselves within the fullest of the law, and I think in some cases the law needs clarification, or some could argue that it needs improving, not just in the UK but across the world. And part of this channel and part of what we do is to talk about topics and bring up discussions and open the conversation on topics that aren't always covered. That I've said this so many times, the way that I think that we progress as a society is by talking about difficult and maybe deemed controversial topics. That's how you find out where two sides of an argument are. And you hash it out and you talk about it and you discuss about it, and then you come to a compromise, you come to a middle ground. But you can only do that by having a discussion. And if you stifle discussion, if you stop it because some deem it to be non-mainstream, or they deem it or they deem it to be like extremism, then that actually, and I'm not just talking about shooting, just in general terms, as soon as you stop people from openly being able to talk about things, that's what causes extremism, that's what causes echo chambers. If you allow people to voice opinions, as popular or unpopular as those opinions are, the general public will be the weight of whether that's an acceptable opinion or an acceptable suggestion. So yes, it was based on my opinions at the time around the French attacks and the video that I put out, and that is the reason that they upheld the revocation. It really had nothing to do with the arrest at the end of the day. It was all about my views, the videos, and the topics that I was covering on the channel. Then obviously fast forward, when I reapplied, I think 2 years later, that's when the whole notion of that I was responsible for other people's comments on this channel, and it's also what led to the shutdown of this channel, because the police actually told me wrongly that I was no longer able to handle firearms for pictures or videos, which sort of makes running a YouTube channel shooting YouTube channel pretty hard. But it was during that whole meeting that they said that they felt that this channel was a forum of extremism based on a few cherry-picked comments that had come through. I did try to explain to them that I think at the time the channel had, I think, 20 or 30,000 comments on it. It was just me running it, just me moderating those comments. I'm not going to see every comment that comes through. I don't condone every comment that is put. I'm sure I haven't actually had a look through the comments yet. I'm sure there are plenty of comments in this stream that if I advocated, yes, that could probably be looked negatively on my own character, but I don't. You are all free people. You are able to decide what you want to go and put on an open platform. The police unfortunately seem to hold it's not even the platform owner, because the platform owner is Google, but whatever, they said that I was responsible for this forum of extremism and that I was still not suitable to own firearms. Still having that battle today. I'm still trying to get my certificates back, but of course I will let you all know how that goes in the future. So it's gonna have a beer update. I didn't let you know. Brewdog Jagged Edge, a spiky Indian Pale Ale. It's quite nice actually. I've got a nice selection box for Christmas. I'm slowly working my way through them. So yes, I've experienced a revocation and also the thing to voluntarily surrender. I didn't know my arse from my elbow about the whole process when that happened. I hope what we've discussed so far this evening helps or potentially prepares some of you guys for what you may end up going through. And something that I've become very aware of, unfortunately, voluntary surrenders and also revocations are a lot more common than the police would like you to think. It was actually stated in my appeal that it's very, very rare for a certificate to be revoked. It's not. When you look at the certificates, it's really not. It happens quite a lot, and I think that's what we're happening. I think that's what we're seeing here is not necessarily an increase in revocations or voluntary surrenders. I just think it's being reported on, because the issue is you feel like, and again, I can talk from personal experience, you feel like an outcast of the community. As soon as they take away those certificates, as soon as they take away your guns, the last thing you want to do is go and tell everybody about it. The last thing you want to do is have it highlighted that you might have done something that has now led to the revocation of your certificates. So, people keep quiet on it, and I think that's honestly the worst thing that you can do, because what's happening at the moment with all this light being shone on these seizures is people are becoming aware of it. They're seeing what's going on. They're seeing the seemingly arbitrary reasons that police are taking away people's guns. They're seeing the manner in which they are doing it, which seems to be incredibly intimidating and in a way almost threatening to the certificate holders. And I think people are realizing that actually you do need to know the ins and outs of a revocation. You do need to know the ins and outs of our laws in case it does happen to you. So yeah, anyway, I hope that sort of covers all bases on that one. There's been quite a lot of comments, so I'll try and get through some of them. We do have some good news in a minute. I will get onto that in a minute. It's like North Korea, where they come for you and your family because you're slagging off Uncle Kim. Like, you joke, but again, my solicitor has actually said that in her experience, she's never seen anything good from complaining about firearms licensing. I wonder why I don't have a certificate. Like, firearms licensing, unfortunately, are sort of a law to their own. We've discussed this recently as well. The Independent Police Complaints Commission don't want anything to do with firearms. They've said we don't involve ourselves with firearms licensing matter. The chief of police don't really want to get involved usually, because it's like, firearms, that's why I have a firearms licensing department. They deal with it. Yes, your police and crime commissioner sometimes can have a bit of a sway, and yes, your MP can sometimes have a bit of a sway, but firearms in this country are like a hot potato. Nobody really wants to stick their neck out about them, so it leaves the firearms licensing to sort of do what they want. And if you complain directly to the people that you're trying to get a certificate off, at the end they are civil servants. No offense to civil servants, but they are civil servants. And if you complain about them to them, what are they going to do? Are they going to feel inspired to issue your certificates? And again, this is why you can't seemingly have like a rational conversation with them and say, well, hang on a minute, this is not how it should be. Can we sort this out? You either have to go in there with an organisation like BASC or with a solicitor and basically tell them, if you don't buck your ideas up, we will be taking you to court, or you have to leave it and bite your tongue. Because if you complain, if you mouth off, you just drop your certificate further down the pile. English Shooting, do you still have your firearms and shotguns? Mostly, yes. I do need to make abundantly clear that no, I do not have them. Yes, I've got a safe behind me. They are full. That's full with air guns. Which I am still, because I'm not a prohibited person, because I don't have a criminal record. I'm still perfectly legally entitled to sub 12 foot-pound air rifles. So it's full with air rifles. my various shotgun and firearms that were purchased whilst I had a certificate have they've probably been on more certificates than any other gun out there. Various friends, RFDs, clubs were incredibly helpful throughout the whole, certainly the first sort of 6 months to 2 years, where, well, I really sort of hermited myself. I just almost didn't want anything to do with shooting because it was not an enjoyable experience. But I soldiered on through. You won't keep me down for long. So yeah, various friends. And the funny thing is, like, and this is just what, like, baffled me and still continues to baffle me, is that the head of the firearms licensing at the time and the judge both said, oh, well, you know, yeah, we don't have a problem with you shooting. We don't have a problem with you taking part in the sport. And actually, they explicitly said, we're more than happy for you to sign over these guns to other friends, to other people, for you to be able to continue shooting. And it's like, well, like, hang on a minute, like, I get having unsupervised access to firearms is slightly different than going down the range with a friend, and, you know, having them in the home and having, you know, unlimited access whenever I want it. Like, I do get that's, you know, slightly more than having a supervised shoot or shooting with a friend. But if you genuinely feel that I'm a danger to the public enough to revoke my certificate, why would you be telling me ways of keeping hold of the guns so that I can continue to use them? Like, what sense does that make? Like, you're too dangerous to have a certificate, but there's a load of guns. Like, it's a little bit conflicting, really. So yeah, the Hampshire Firearms Licensing and the judge both said, yeah, I can sign over the certificates. So various friends took them, RFDs took them. They are now all under, some are still on various certificates, like Kentucky Firearms Club as well. That's, you know, why it's not just a club to me. It's not just my Home Office approved club. The guys that run Kentucky Firearms Club, and I believe I saw at least Dave here earlier. Hi Dave, thanks for joining. You know, they're very, very good friends, and they went above and beyond to make sure that I could still shoot my guns as often as I could. So, like, the 1522 actually became a club gun, and it wasn't just used by me. It wasn't my sole thing. It was used by all the members of the club, but still, when I was able to turn up to a shoot, I had my 1522 to continue using and continue shooting with. I did unfortunately have to sell a lot of my firearms because, like, Section 1 shotguns here, you can't borrow, you can't share. Only the certificate holder can shoot them unless you're an RFD. Same with long barrel pistols, so both of them had to go. Fortunately, it was actually friends that bought those, bought those guns and took care of those guns, and they became their own guns. So they were able to, you know, I was at least able to see them be put to good use, and know that they had gone to, you know, friends. The one gun that I regret the most about not doing more to be able to keep is the Mosin Nagant. I think the M44 carbine, yes, the flamethrower with a bayonet, a gun that I think I paid 250, 300 quid. They're now like £1,000. I absolutely loved shooting that thing. That I ended up selling off. It was mainly because none of my friends at the time had an open slot for that gun, so it was like, oh, I'll sell it. I ended up selling Remington 700 off. That I was actually thinking of selling that prior to the revocation anyway, so that wasn't really a big decision. But the guns that have remained, the 1522, the Smith & Wesson 1522, that's currently in the Magload Armory. There's the Beretta Silver Pigeon, again, the gun super sentimental to me. That's in the Magload Armory. I think all of them pretty much are in the Magload Armory at the moment. You know, my granddad's shotgun, I've still got that single shot hammer shotgun, again, incredibly sentimental. It's probably not worth even £2.50 to anyone, but it's probably the most valuable gun that I have. And what else? I think that was... Oh, and funny enough, a friend's over and under shotgun, that, well, it was not a friend's, a shotgun that I had for use for friends and stuff like that, that got put on my certificate, that that's been kicking about, like this old Zabala thing. I think that's all that's left from it. Everything else either got sold off or disposed of. No, so like I wouldn't have disposed of any of them. But yeah, that's, you know, I still have guns from what I purchased, but I hope, I do truly believe, because I don't have a criminal record, I think by the virtue of being involved full time in the firearms industry, and quite oftenly having a gun in my hand more often than most certificate holders in this country, I can only hope that, you know, logic will prevail and that I will get a certificate at some point. Brett, what's your take on a doctor recommending unsuitability for a license even though they have never met you? I would question whether they're anti or not. So for those of you that don't know, with the licensing, you know, for any international viewers, or if you're international or new to the stream, hit the like button, make sure you subscribe. We do this every single week. Numbers are doing pretty well. There must be a fair few people, but yeah, make sure you like the stream. It does really help with the YouTube analytics. It goes a long way to sharing and reaching new people on this channel, and hopefully encouraging them into the sport of shooting. So yeah, hit that like button and also subscribe. Yeah, we do this every Thursday, 7:30 UK time, and we talk about more positive things sometimes. So what do I think about doctor recommending unsuitability for a license even though they have never met you? Personally, that's not actually within the GP's remit. Or that's what I was explaining about why the GP gets involved. So now, as part of the process to obtain a firearm certificate or shotgun certificate in the UK, you need to have a GP form completed as part of the application, and all it is meant to be is a GP goes through your medical record and basically says if there is any of the certain like key mental health issues or maybe even physical health issues that would potentially prevent you from being suitable to own firearms. And I will try and find, funnily enough, if you type in GP form for a shotgun certificate, yours truly turns up, which is quite handy because now I can show you the can actually show you the form. No, that's just me. Come on, like, there we go. No, I had it. Here we go. So I'll bring this up for you. This is the form that Hampshire uses. So as you can see, this is what the GP has to tick as part of the application. So it basically just has to say either you do or don't have any of these on your mental on your medical records, and they can give further details if required. So as we can see, it's mainly mental health issues, but also there is, you know, alcohol and drug abuse. There is other medical other physical conditions that may prevent. So in terms of a GP actually declaring that you are unsuitable themselves, that's not up to them. They are just there to say whether you do or whether you don't have any of these issues. That's certainly the way that it works in Hampshire. At the end of the day, GPs are not psychiatrists, right? They cannot make a mental assessment of you, a psychiatric assessment of you. They're not trained psychologists or psychiatrists or whatever ology that comes under. So I would highly challenge that. I know, Brett, that this is based off of the comment today from one of your friends. I would be challenging it. And again, a prime example, I really, really hope that he has legal expenses insurance, because if he does and he's been refused, then he can kick in the legal expenses insurance and he can get some solicitors and some legal support to be able to fight his corner and to hopefully overturn it. In terms of the police, I don't think the police, it's not really a police issue, or it's not really the police's issue, because they've been told by a GP that he's unsuitable. So what are the police going to do? Issue the certificate in spite of that? So really what he needs to do, and again, this may just be a conversation, and just like phone them up and go, look, I've never seen this GP before in my life. They obviously haven't been able to make an accurate assessment for me, of me. Did they declare if there's anything in my medical records? You can actually make a request for your medical records. I would advise your friend to do that, so that he can see if there's actually anything on there in terms of mental health issues, and maybe what she is, maybe what she's going off of. It could be, in the worst case, that she is just anti and is just trying to cause difficulties because she doesn't want anybody owning firearms. It would be interesting as well, and maybe he should get the ball rolling on this, is to go to like Shotgun Medicals or MediCert and get them to do the form for him. Now, you don't actually need to have an application in to be able to use Shotgun. Do you need an application number? No, because with Hampshire you need the form before the application. So get them to do the form, and if MediCert come back, and say no, it's all clear, there's no issues here, then perhaps that's the best thing, to go back to the firearms licensing that have refused him and say, well, hang on a minute, look, this doctor's obviously up to something, or has obviously made a mistake, because here's MediCert and they're telling me that everything's okay. So can you look into this further, and obviously let's try and clear this up. Yeah, it seems very, very odd. How can a doctor, apart from if there is like a red flag in your medical record, how can a doctor make an assessment, their own assessment of you, of your mental health and mental state, without ever talking to you? It's just like, you know, what, like if they've got a crystal ball, I want one. Callum, are you aware of the December 2021 firearms license guidance for chief officers? I believe so. I think this is what we referred to earlier on. It's the new guidance that has come in, but might have missed it. If you want to drop an email at EnglishShooting at gmail.com. Yes, I need to get an at EnglishShooting.com. Like, give me a break. I've got a website, right? Leave me alone. If you wouldn't mind just pinging me an email about that, and then I can just go in and double check, because I always like to be kept up to date on it. Hey Callum, question: what would you do if your firearms department have a split decision? SGC approved, FAC refused. I've heard on the grapevine it can happen with coterminous applications. So if they refuse the FAC and the SGC, the reason that they are refusing the FAC is because you don't have justification for having a firearms certificate. In terms of suitability, in terms of your character, it is the same for both a shotgun certificate and a firearms certificate. If you are suitable to have a shotgun certificate, you are also suitable to have a firearm certificate. The caveat and the difference with a firearm certificate is that you need to provide good reason for having that firearm certificate. Now, for most sports shooters, this is being a full member of a Home Office approved club. So my thoughts would be, if they refuse the firearm certificate, it is because they're either not a full member of a Home Office approved club, or they're a vermin shooter, again without sufficient experience. So the other avenue into a firearm certificate is that if you shoot, if you're a pest controller, a vermin shooter, a deer stalker, and you have been out with sufficiently experienced shooters long enough, and you've gained enough experience, and you know your way around a rifle, and you can have effectively somebody vouch for you in terms of your experience and firearms handling, then the police will issue a firearm certificate without you being a member of a full member of a Home Office approved club. But if they don't feel that you meet that bar in terms of the vermin shooting, I mean, collecting as well, you can also just have a firearm certificate for collecting. So yeah, it's only some very specific circumstances. But what I would say in terms of the firearm certificate, like if they're saying you are unsuitable to have a firearm certificate based on your own character and based on your own suitability, then they shouldn't be issuing you the shotgun certificate. If that's the line that they're going with, they done fucked up. Because if they've given you the shotgun certificate, you can just appeal it and turn up to your appeal and go, I've got a shotgun. They gave me a shotgun certificate. Why am I not suitable to have a firearm certificate? Unless, again, as I've said, it comes down to your justification and reason for having a firearm certificate. You shouldn't be drinking Brewdog as they donate to Wild Justice, but it's so tasty. I mean, I gave up Lush. I mean, to be fair, I didn't really buy much from Lush previously, but I won't. Like, my Holly knows she will never get a single present from Lush from me. Brewed, and they were, I didn't buy them, so it wasn't my money that went towards Brewdog. Is that to say it was a gift? It was a Christmas gift. So is that okay? I mean, it would just be rude to waste it, right? When they kick in your front door, how are you going to go? With your hands in the air or yeah, no. It's not. That was a song. I'm not finishing the rest of that song. David Kittle, that is an interesting one to talk about. Probably very, very divisive. No jab, no no jab, no club shoots. Anyway, answer Brian Solomon's question. Sorry, Brian. So I'm sorry if I'm missing questions. There's quite a lot of you this evening. Brian Solomon, fourth attempt at reply. Brian Solomon, here we go. My FAC, I'm really sorry. Thank you for sticking with it. All you have to do is ask 5 times and I'll finally get to it. And also get my mum to highlight it to me as well. Hi, Mum. She's my #1 fan, okay? Right? Without her, you wouldn't have me. Is the world better off because of that? I would like to think so. My FAC come back after a variation with no rifles that I have showing. Do you think they were deleted from the system? Probably. It depends. First of all, it depends, Brian, what force you're under, because it depends on which force that you're under. Then each force has their own system. They have their own equipment and sort of data entry and things like that. Apparently, Devon and Cornwall are still using parchment and quells, but Hampshire, I think, is very electronic now. So it depends what system they are using. I hope you've gone straight back to them and you've queried this and that you've raised it with them, because unfortunately, whilst it's their mistake, all the time that you are in possession of those rifles, without them on your certificate, you technically don't have lawful authority to possess those firearms. So I would 100% get back to your firearms licensing and get them in writing to say, because what normally happens in these situations is they will go, really, really sorry, our bad, excuse me, oh sorry, our bad, we get out a new certificate, we get a new certificate to you as soon as possible. We are perfectly okay with you retaining possession of those rifles until we can get the new certificates. But you want that in writing, right? Because let's just say you live in Devon Cornwall at the moment. They come to take away your guns, to seize your guns, and they're like, well, hang on a minute. There's all these different, you're in possession of illegal firearms. It's just a mess that you do not want to have. I have sort of experienced this myself. When I ended up speaking with the police regarding, it was the first time I spoke to them about the actual Paris attack video. So I'd had some contact with them prior to the appeal and the revocation, and I went down and was having a very informal chat. They just wanted to check that I wasn't some nutter. At the time, they seemed to be quite happy with the fact that I wasn't. I don't know why things later on changed. So they were like, oh yeah, you've got 3 guns. And I'm like, ha ha ha, I've got 7. And they were like, what? I was like, I've got 7. I've got 7 firearms, right? And they were like, but there's only 3 on our system. I'm like, well, first, like one of the guns I can forgive you with because I can forgive you on because it was only purchased 2 weeks ago. But those other 6 guns were present during the recent variation that I had. The FEO took a note of all of those serial numbers and all of those guns, so it beggars belief why they're not in the system. And this is actually something again that has been highlighted by Field Sports Britain, is Devon and Cornwall have done this repeatedly. There are a number of cases of Devon and Cornwall completely or sending out blank certificates, and again, it's an administration error. It's administered by people. People make mistakes. You can forgive them for that, and it was corrected. But it's not a nice thing to go through for a firearms owner that your certificate turns up and all your guns are missing off of it. And what was actually more concerning in one of the cases is that he phoned up and he was like, yeah, you need to reissue my certificate because all of the previous purchased firearms are not on there. And they were like, write them in yourself. And the other guy was like, and another person that this had happened to, he's there in the video going, so what had happened in his case, in this specific case, was that all of the guns he had previously bought had disappeared off of his certificates, but he still had the slots. So he was like, I already had the guns, the slots were filled. What they've basically done is given me a blank canvas. I could go out and buy double the amount of guns. I could go and buy the same guns again, and they would have never have known. I would have had double the amount of guns. I'd have guns that effectively was not on a record anywhere. And what they ended up having to do is tell the firearms licensing department what the make and model, the serial number was of every single gun, because they had completely lost any record of what guns he had purchased, what guns he had. And I think that is potentially what had happened to myself when I had this chat with the police. And you have to say, like, it's infuriating because we jump through all these hoops, right? We go and get a certificate. We, make ourselves the model firearms owners, the model citizens to be able to have a firearm or shotgun certificate here in the UK, and then it's completely undermined and bypassed by a poor record keeping. It's like, what is the point of having a certificate and keeping good records yourself and notifying the police every time you buy a gun if they're just going to lose the records? It's like literally you could go and start burying these guns in the gardens and just say, no, I never had them. Well, but you definitely did. Like, last time I came round, you had these guns. No, I don't know what you're talking about. There's no record of it. So they've just completely undermined the whole purpose of a firearms certificate and having serial numbers, right? And again, this was also highlighted with the Mars and Lever release. They didn't know how many were out there. They still don't know how many were out there. And I'm still personally convinced there are going to be Mars and Lever release rifles on ticket that haven't been handed in still. Like, they were grossly out on the numbers that they thought that they would be taking in. And that just shows, when firearms licensing departments are sending out en masse letters to every single certificate holder across a county, telling them that if they have a Mars, they should get rid of it, that sort of waves the red flags that they don't have a clue who has the Mars rifles, who has the lever release rifles, where they are, and who they should be, how many they should be expecting to receive back. So are all autistic people going to be banned from owning a firearm in the UK now? That might seem like a really random thing to say, but again, this is based on this video from Field Sports Channel TV, and the guy that refused to voluntarily surrender and basically wouldn't let the police enter his premises, the reason that they had come round and wanted to seize his guns is because he had, on his most recent application, had declared that he had autism. He had had a diagnosis of autism, had declared it on his most recent certificate or application or variation, and this is what has subsequently triggered the police coming round and wanting to take his firearms. Now, what he called it was discrimination. Just because somebody, and to answer your question in short, are all autistic people going to be banned from owning firearms in the UK now? No. There's been plenty of people that I know, that I have spoken to online, that have autism in various degrees, and they have firearm certificates. And what this guy, he does quite eloquently put it, is that autism is not a mental health issue, right? Just because you are autistic doesn't automatically make you a danger to the public. I'm not saying that there are some severities of autism or some I'm not saying that some autism or cases of autism could potentially make a person a danger to themselves or a danger to somebody else with a firearm. But just because somebody has autism doesn't mean that they are. And this is what he says in the video, is he says it's discrimination. By just blanketly saying everyone with autism needs to be reviewed and everyone with autism needs to have their guns seized so that they can be reviewed, he said, no, that's not how it works. That's actually discrimination. So no, just because you may be autistic, and it's just like with mental health issues, there's various degrees and flavors, as it were, for lack of a better word, and it really does depend on a case-by-case basis. And what I say, that if you're autistic, if you have any mental health issues, if you even if you have Asperger's or something like that, it's really down to your GP. And if you have any questions of whether you are going to be successful in applying for a firearm certificate, it's going to be because of your GP. Either your GP is going to say yes, I don't, or yes, there is an issue here, or no, there isn't. At the end of the day, police are not medical professionals. They are not trained or qualified to be able to make a medical assessment. This is why they bring your GP into it, and this is why the GP will sign off, going through your medical records, saying yes or no. And it will be down to effectively your GP's call to say, yes, there might be autism here, but no, it's not going to cause a danger to them or a danger to the public if this person has firearms. But you need to speak to them and approach them to see what they would do in the first place. Have you reapplied for a certificate again yet? You mentioned you were reapplying in a video before all the new applications were stopped by COVID. Yes, I applied in October 2020. So yeah, it's been over a year now. Yes, I do currently still have a application in for a firearm and shotgun certificate. I am a little bit bemused that whilst others seems to have had theirs returned and refunded, I haven't. The only reason or justification I think, or the only way I think this has happened, is that if you've put in an application and they haven't even started processing it yet, just return it and send it back. As disgusting as I think that is, we can get onto that. Well, we're going to talk about that actually. It was a topic, but we've been very much stuck on the whole police coming to take your guns. I think what's happened is they begun to process my application, and it is stuck in a processing pile rather than a to be processed pile. I don't know. So the application's in. There's various hurdles that my firearms licensing department want to throw at me still. So just need to overcome those, and then we will be hopefully on the way to a certificate again. So actually on that note, of course, we talked about North Yorkshire shutting down shop, Hampshire shutting down shop, and even some others. Well, Basque are calling them out on it. Basque are going to talk to every police and crime commissioner to get them to stop doing this. And the way that Basque has come at this is that it's actually their statutory duty. And I might be oversimplifying here, but the way that our law is written, if somebody is suitable, if somebody passes the necessary bar of being able to have a shotgun or firearm certificate, the police shall issue one, right? It is part of their statutory duty. It is part of them being the police. That is what they are there. That's what they're meant to do. That is part of their duty. And whilst maybe a little bit of an extreme example, it's like the police not going and arresting a bank robber, right? Oh no, COVID. We don't want to go out there and investigate this crime, or we don't want to go and arrest somebody just in case, we put a strain on the NHS in arresting them because, we're going to have to go out into the public and find this person. And, it just might be, too much strain. Issuing firearms certificate is part of their job. And what BASC have said, I think verbatim, is you can't pick and choose the law, right? You either do everything you're meant to be doing, or you do everything you're meant to be doing. You can't pick and choose. This is your job. So BASC, I think, are going quite hard on it. They're trying to hold them to account as best as they can, and we'll be talking to police and crime commissioners to try and kick them up the backside to get going. And I think, all the time you have Boris and government saying, we will soldier on through this, we're just going to, no new restrictions, we're just keep going. And then firearms licensing, just some firearms licensing, just decide, no, we're not going to do it anymore. It's just a poor excuse at this point. Why not make it clear to your elected official that the people want gun rights? I'm in Chicago, and it was hard fought battle, and still is sometimes, but well worth it. The issue is numbers, and this is one of the reasons that it's very hard to compare the UK and the US or any country to another country. But one of the main differences in the UK is numbers. Right, even in a place like Chicago or even in California, where the swing seems to very much be on the anti-gun side of things, the amount of pro-Second Amendment, the amount of pro-gun people even in those heavily anti-gun states are still going to absolutely dwarf the amount of shooters and firearms owners and certificate holders here within the UK. There are around, I think, 600,000 to 750,000 excuse me, total certificate holders here in the UK. That's less than 1% of the total population. And this is why MPs and officials and government don't really care about firearms. They don't really care about firearms owners and shooters, because they don't make up enough of the voters. And this is why I continuously say it. It's a numbers game. We need more numbers. We need more people in this sport. We need more people with certificates, because if we get a couple of million, we get 5 million, we get 10 million certificate holders, that's then enough for the government to go, that's a shitload of voters, that's enough to swing a vote. At the moment, less than 1% of the population, it's not going to make a difference to any single election. Of course, there may be a scenario where that 1% does make a difference, but it's very, very unlikely, and it's so unlikely that the MP, it's just not going to occur to them. That's why we get absolutely battered left, right and sideways as firearms owners, as shooters, as firearm enthusiasts, because we're the little guy, right? There's not enough of us and people don't care. So yes, you can always talk to your MP, you can always lobby the government and lobby politicians into maybe improving things for firearms owners, changing laws where firearms are concerned, but it's sort of fallen on deaf ears because they're worrying about, they want to keep their jobs. That's all an MP or a politician is worried about, is keeping their job. and they are going to throw their time and energy into matters that are going to give them the most votes back, you know, that are going to yield the most voters, yield the most votes. So we you know, no government really worries about firearms. Everyone knocks Devon and Cornwall. Oh, so Brian, you actually are you're actually on in Devon and Cornwall. So they seem to make a habit of wiping people's certificates. So I've just seen that. They do like to make a mess of things. I mean, if the writing wasn't like, I know what you're saying, that obviously you've never had any issues with them, but when they seem to make a habit of wiping people's certificates, you can obviously see that department wasn't being run efficiently, and as we all know, it was through just a complete lack of, you know, any efficiency or any sort of attention to detail that ended up allowing them to give the Keyham shooter his guns back. You know, literally you can't have any more red flags than in that case, and yet they still gave the certificate back. So it was really only a matter of time, really. What happens if you lose your license but your wife has a license as well? Presuming you live in the same house, would she have hers taken as well? I'm sure they could find a reason as why, like especially if she's the reason that they're taking the guns off of you. But if it's completely separate, then no. If your wife or partner or roommate is still, you know, a suitable person, has not had their certificates revoked, then no. And this is actually a level of protection that you could potentially, again, it's all about having foresight and seeing into the future and covering your bases. Personally, I think it's very convenient to have your partner or somebody that you live with also being a certificate holder and also having the same guns on their certificates, because it just makes things a lot easier overall in terms of logistics and having access to certain things and leaving guns out. You know what happens if you get halfway through like a nut and bolt clean of a gun, and then you got to go and pick somebody up from school, you know. But if your partner doesn't have a certificate, you then got to get all of that, you know, bits and bobs of a gun and then chuck it into a safe. So, you know, if your partner's got a certificate and that gun's on their certificate, you can like, right, keep an eye on all this. I'm just going to go and pick Nelly up from the school, come back, and it's a little bit more straightforward in that sense. But also it gives you the protection that if one of you loses the certificate, if all of the guns are on both of your certificates, they have no right to take the guns. All you have to demonstrate is that you no longer have access to them. So your partner then takes control of the keys and doesn't tell you where they are. They take your certificate and not theirs, and then the guns can still stay within the house. And yeah, that is potentially something that you could look into doing to covering all bases. Black guinea pig. Yes, of course. I'm sorry, we got into it quite a bit. So there is, I haven't plugged these guys for a while. To be honest, I haven't been on the Discord for quite a while because it's just been a mental few months for me, but things are coming down. So if you want a place where there is sometimes a wealth of knowledge, just sometimes, it's just mainly memes and penis jokes, but if there's a UK shooting centric Discord, I do, and I have the link ready. Basically, if you want to go and hang out and talk everything about UK shooting, and you know, there's various. I'll bring it up on. Oh, do I bring it up? This is part of the reason I don't go on there anymore, because I can't bring it up on the stream because you guys, I don't know, maybe you clean yourselves up. Anyway, there's the invite. It's the UK Shooting Discord. One of the reasons that you definitely should check it out is competition. Competition's always good because it ends up honing in your skills. But I'll bring over the UK Shooting Discord. They do a monthly competition. It's effectively a postal competition. So if you follow that invite link and you go down to UKS matches, you will see basically the structure of the of this month's match. This month is a golf match. So what you have is a target. Oh no, that's the invite link. Anyway, if you click that link, that's what you'll get to. This is the target for this month's shooting competition. It's 10 shots with a pistol of some description at 10 meters. So what these are designed to do is be for anybody to take part in them, and then you can post your scores, you can post your results, and you can have a bit of, like, you know, online competition with each other. So I just obviously there's the scoring for the target, and that's all you need. You need one pistol, iron sight only, non-magnified optic. So this can be an air pistol, it could be a BB gun, it could be a long barrel pistol, it could be a 9mm. So this isn't just UK. If you want to get involved in this, you can do this anywhere in the world. You need one target printed on A4 paper, 4 rounds of your choice. So again, be anything you want, and 1 10-meter range. If you want, like most people will have access to 10 meters. You know, so and then you can also get an honourable mention if you if you're not able to do the competition to those exact criteria. It is an honesty thing, so you could absolutely game it. But yeah, there's other things, so I can show you. There's a clubhouse, so you get various different like sub forums that you can go and chat in. Rimfire, centerfire, shotgun, air arms, black powder. All different subjects, all different areas. I spend a disproportionate amount of time in the garage when I've been on there, and then there's Hall of Fame, and of course there's memes. Don't go into the memes. Don't, like, honestly, just don't do it. Just don't go into the meme. But anyway, follow that invite link to the UK Shooting Discord. Loads of like-minded people, loads of good fun, and a fair amount of banter, especially when I'm online. But yeah, just got to give those a bit of a shout out, and I may even yeah, I'll say it. I'll be there after the stream, even though I've still got far more work to do this evening. Fuck it, I have a night off. I'll go and hang out in Discord. So follow that invite link, hang about in there, and I'll be on after the stream. Well, no, it's Apprentice now, isn't it? Dun, 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 dun. Subscribe to make a comment. I believe all of... Well, good. That's exactly why I have that. It's like, you know, if you're going to join the chat, you can at least subscribe, and I hope that you'll continue your subscription and give this channel a chance. Forget, like, again, we've got like what 138 likes, and we've got over 200 people watching. There's a slight difference there. If you're watching, why aren't you liking? Because if you're not liking, why are you watching? 2 people watching. Black Guinea Pig, I have a wealth of knowledge, and I also make penis jokes. See, told you. So you said, sorry, you subscribed specifically to say something, so I think I should give you the courtesy of reading. Subscribe to make a comment. I believe all of this is excellent advice. I think in future people should take the time to learn all the laws and procedures and use them to your benefit. I couldn't agree more. I could only wish that I knew what I knew back then. I still don't think it would have changed anything, because I refused to voluntarily surrender and they revoked, which is what they did anyway, or I voluntarily surrender. I don't know. It does sort of niggle me that if I had, you know, gone for that voluntary surrender, whether I would have ended up getting them back, and whether I'd have certificates now, I don't know. But, you know, don't want to live in the past, want to focus on the future. Revocation, does this mean they will have some sort of paperwork, some sort of legal document to present to you, i.e. a warrant or a seizure, for example? Yes. So we discussed this at the beginning of the stream. Just as a quick recap, if the police come to your door to take your firearms, it's going to be for one of 2 reasons. It's going to be because they are asking you to voluntarily surrender your firearms, or they are issuing you with a revocation. Voluntarily surrendering your firearms, as it says in the name, You need to voluntarily do that. They are asking you to do that. They're not telling you. So you do, in essence, have the ability to refuse. If they come there with a revocation, that's it. Like, they're coming into the house and they are taking the guns. There is a formal process, a formal document that they are issued, and then they have the powers. But because they've issued a revocation, because your licenses have been revoked, you no longer have authority to possess those firearms. So you are breaking the law. And because you are breaking the law, the police have authority to gain entrance to your property to be able to stop the law from being broken. In the case of a voluntary surrender, if you comply, that's up to you. And again, I would still advise to comply. It's always going to look better on your character long term. If you comply, you're handing them over. The certificate is still valid. You're still technically, well, you are still lawfully, you still have lawful authority to be in possession of those firearms. You're just giving it to the police and your certificates for safekeeping. It hasn't been cancelled. The certificate hasn't been ripped up or voided. It's just sort of on pause. You don't have the certificates and you don't have the guns, so you can't go and really do anything. Obviously, refusing to cooperate with the request to voluntarily surrender, that can lead to a revocation anyway. So it really depends what you want to do and what the circumstances is. At the moment with Plymouth, I think what we're seeing is some very tenuous reasons for why the police are asking for certificate holders to voluntarily surrender their certificates, and that's why people are able to successfully refuse it, because people are going, no, I don't want to voluntarily give you my guns. I don't think you have good reason to ask me to voluntarily to surrender my guns. And the police are sort of going, yeah, we sort of don't, so we can't revoke them because we don't have enough reason or justification to revoke them. So right, we'll see you later then. And I think that's what seems to be happening in Plymouth. Obviously, refusing, you're being uncooperative. That's going to be, in essence, a black mark against your name going forward. And if the police do have good justification to, be asking you to voluntarily surrender your firearms, they most likely have good reason to also revoke. And if you refuse to voluntarily surrender them, they're probably just going to revoke. I mean, maybe that's a good tell, because in a lot of these stories, police are going in there and they're not able to give any information about why they're there to take the guns. That's going to ask a lot of questions, and maybe it's at that point that you can ask, well, actually, do they have real justification for taking them away? Maybe that could sway it for you in terms of deciding either way. Again, I still say always comply. It's like, again, this is sort of like a tangent, but in any situation with the police, if a police officer tells you to do something, it's much easier to by not complying, it's usually only ever going to escalate. This is what we see in a lot of the shootings in America with people, where the police officers are, let's just say in certain circumstances, are in the wrong, right? They've pulled them over for no reason. They are, maybe discriminating. Maybe they're having a bad day and they want to take it out on somebody. And you can see, like, actually it's maybe an abuse of power. It's an abuse of it's overbearing. It's not justified. But what's made worse is by the person not complying. And yes, I get it. It's hard if the police officer is in the wrong and you know they're wrong and you know you're right. It's sort of natural to just go, well, no, hang on, you're wrong. But that escalates things. And in a lot of these shootings, what you see is it's like, if he'd have just said yes, like, all that was going to happen is that they were going to, and I know this is sort of like all that was going to happen. Worst case, the police says, look, I've pulled you over, I'm going to arrest you and take you down to the cells, right? Yeah, I can't imagine anybody wanting to comply with that. But that's then the worst case scenario. If you start getting into an argument, you start resisting, you start fighting them, that's when it escalates, and things will get a lot worse. So, be calm, be polite. If the officer is making a mistake, let them make the mistake. As long as it's not going to lead to the end of your life, they're telling you to walk off the side of a cliff or something, You know, the worst that's going to happen, you're going to be cuffed, you're going to be taken down to the station, and then it's going to get sorted out. The thing is, if they make a wrongful arrest, you have a lot of comeback on it, right? So let them wrongfully arrest you and then sue them into the ground. But what you see time and time again is people getting argumentative, getting aggressive, getting violent towards the police, and then no matter for what reason it started, then the police have justification to take action against you, and to potentially hurt you back. That's why I always, you've got to have faith in the system, like to take that sort of approach. But yeah, that's just, I don't know. Maybe I'm still too faithful in things, but if the police come and they say, like, we want you to voluntarily surrender, I'd just be like, if you haven't done anything wrong, then you've got nothing to hide. It can all be sorted out. You've got to have faith that will happen. It just seems like less and less people seem to have faith, unfortunately. Sorry for the noise. I'm on bevy number 2. I don't know why I had to do it like that. Could have just opened the fucking thing. If you comply, you are more likely to get them back. And I think that is really the crux of it. That's sort of the crux that I'm saying. No matter what the circumstances, no matter how right or wrong it is, like, if you comply, it's only going to look positively in the long run. It may lead to a lot more expense, a lot more headache for people, but in the long run, it's going to give you the greatest chance. And that's why I say it's interesting to have seen what would have happened if I'd have just said, yes, I'm voluntarily surrendering them, and not asked them for the review to take place today. Would that have looked positive, more positive going forward, and would I have had them back? Maybe. You just never know. I was just trying to flick through comments, so apologies if missed anything, but I can't see any questions or comments to answer. So I do want to. We've covered most of the topics. I do just want a little bit of positivity. As you all know, I'm a big into my practical shooting within, you know, practical shotgun, mini rifle, 3-gun, whatever your flavour of practical shooting is. And I hope you guys have all gone and watched this video. If you want an idea of what we can do here within the UK when it comes to guns and shooting and competing, go and check out the Scottish Shotgun Championship. This was back in 2021. Yes, it took a number of months for me to get this out. Again, I was horrendously busy, but this is like a showcase of really the top level of practical shooting within the UK. It's enormous fun. Highly recommend doing it. The amount of time that people put into these matches, the match officials, the range staff and crew, and the rangers themselves, and club members that help assemble all of these courses of fire. So the GoPro footage, FYI, is actually me, and believe it or not, I'm using a 2+1. That's why you normally only see 2 shots with the head cam footage. But yeah, fantastic competition. The Scottish Shotgun Championship was very, very technical, very sort of tight stages, as you can see, manoeuvring the gun around obstacles, very sort of quick fire, no real like long run and gun stages. What was my favourite stage of the day? Probably I do like the longer stages, I have to be honest. Team Magload, big up for Team Magload, and of course the man, the myth, the legend, the beard, Connors. So yeah, we can have some fun with firearms in the UK. But anyway, go and check out this video. It's on the channel. It was released this week. You'll get to see all the scores and the winners and all that, and a bit of head cam footage from me. Actually, stage 4 I think is my favourite stage of the day. Tissues at the ready and Vaseline if you need it. Look at that majestic beard. So this one again, it was like a long stage, but it's very technical, you know, shooting around the side there, no shoots, tight no shoots, apertures, So you're moving about quite a lot, but it's still very, very technical, very tight no shoots there. And this is, yeah, trying to nail those when they're going full chat. Connor's managed it in one. But yeah, the reason I'm telling you all about this is because there are a number of large, like, high-level matches run every single year by the clubs and under the UK PSA, and they have released all of the match dates and locations on their website. So if you go to the UK PSA, I've got the link here. I'm going to put it in the chat box in the description. I'm trying to put it in the chat box in the description. So that link will take you to all of their events, and it's a pretty plentiful year this year. So we can bring it up. I know somebody was asking about the British Shooting Show. I'll talk about that in a minute. Obviously, there's the big meetings. We've got the AGM in the beginning of February, British Shooting Show, then Northern Shooting, then the Target Shooting Show. But the competition dates, really, there's not a single one that you should miss. If you're into your practical shooting, be that shotgun, be that mini rifle, they're all run to a very high standard. But funnily enough, I've never been to the home counties, but it's run at the North Coast Butts, which is where the Coats of Irons was held, which I'm working on that video as well. That should be out soon. The Welsh, I think the Welsh is probably going to become the highlight of most people's sort of competition 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 season, because of and again, you can go and watch it, the first Welsh Mini Rifle Championship on the channel. There's a video from a few months ago. The topology that they have, the space and the range, it's going to be absolutely fantastic when it's finished. He's not even really just started on the plans that they have there at Pro Shoot, but Lambradich is going to be a real crown in the UK shooting, real jewel in the crown of UK practical shooting. So yeah, that one we're getting signed up. Well, we're going to be, I think the only one that we can't do is actually the home counties, because we should, fingers crossed, be in America. But yeah, those are the dates there. Obviously, you've got the Welsh Mini Rifle Championship. Again, that for me was the highlight of the year. Like, yeah, I don't want to speak negatively of any other competitions. They were all really good. Like the Southern Mini Rifle at Basildon, that was a great competition as well. Had amazing fun there. Just the Welsh was, I've not seen competitions like that in the UK in terms of the vastness of the stages and the space that they had available. And a new location in the Midlands, so at the Evely Ranges. Now Evely, again, they are, I'm going to be going to them quite a bit more. What they've done there is fantastic. The bays that they've put in, the facilities that they've now got. So I only think we're going to see more high level, high quality matches from them. We've got a long barrel pistol match at Evely as well, level 2, and also the level 3 action at the barn in Winchester. I think I'll be shooting the pre-match for this because it actually unfortunately clashes with another shotgun match, and because Magload is predominantly shotgun, we sort of have to prioritize that. But we will go and shoot it in the pre-match and at least go and experience the competition and go and shoot it. But we are planning, again, as I've said, the only one, I think the LBP at Evely clashes with something, but I think we might be able to just about do both that weekend. So apart from the home counties, which we're out of the country for, myself and Connors are going to try and shoot every single one of those matches this year. Some people, and I can sort of get this, but some people seem to have a reservation, or they seem a little bit apprehensive about going and shooting like one of these matches. It's, you know, a level 3 match, and it's, you know, the best shooters there. Like, you really don't. Like, join the UK PSA, get some practice in, get your competition license, and get signed up for these matches. It doesn't matter if you think you're the best, if you think you're the worst shooter out there, you're completely inexperienced. As long as you're safe, you will have fun doing it. And fuck everybody else. If people moan and berate because you're being slow, fuck them, right? Everybody needs to start somewhere. As long as you're safe, as long as you're having fun, that's all that matters. So regardless of your your ability, safety aside, just make sure, if you've got a competition license and you've passed a safety course, you should be safe, because that's the whole point of it, to go into a competition. So don't, I've said to people before, if you go into a level 3, just worry about finishing it. Don't think about setting the fastest time or winning the match. Just watch your trigger finger, watch the angles, and finish the competition, and you will have fun. You don't need to be the best shooter in the world to take part in these competitions. Get involved, get signed up and turned up. And at every single one of these competitions, the range crew, the range staff itself, they will bend over backwards to help you. They will, the ROs will be, if you go up to an RO at every stage and go, look, this is my first level 3, this is my first, oh, there goes my mic, my first level 3, my first big competition, would you mind just helping me a little bit? They will, right? They, the UK PSA are doing everything they can to get new shooters into the sport, to encourage more people to take part in competitions, and that trickles down to the RO, that trickles down to the range staff. They will be helpful, and even other shooters as well. You don't necessarily have to go to range staff. Other shooters, ask your squad mates. Just say, look, just go up to them here. Hey, how's it going, everyone? This is my first level 3. I'd really appreciate it if you guys can sort of help me where you can and guide me and show me the ropes, as it were. And once you've done one, then it's just, then you know what it's all about. The general atmosphere and the culture of it, and it just goes from there. So don't worry about. Just throw yourself into that. Get that competition license and throw yourself in. And even like Connors and I tend to be at pretty much every match for the entirety of it. If it's your first level 3, please come and grab myself or Connors. When we're not shooting, because that would be, we're in the middle of a stage and somebody walks up and like, hello, be like, one sec, but come up. We won't bite. And I want to see more people take part in this. I want to see more people at matches. That's how this sport is going to grow. That's how this industry is going to grow, is by more people competing and more people taking part. So anything that myself can do, Connors can do, or any of the match officials, we will do as much as we can. So the shooting stand, the shooting show in Feb, the British Shooting Show, 100% I will be there. The only reason that I haven't been is for the same reason that everybody else hasn't been in recent years, because it hasn't been on. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I love the British Shooting Show, the Northern Shooting Show, and of course now the Target Shooting Show as well. And the British Shooting Show sort of kicks off the year. It's just the real, no matter what discipline that you're into, even as a heavily practical shooter, it's the beginning of the year. It's always before the first comp, and it's just, you get to go to see all the stands and all the people and catch up. So good to hear you'll be on the Premier Gun Stand again, Brett. I'll come and find you and track you down. It's pretty hard to miss the Premier Gun Stand, you have to be completely honest, but I think that's the whole point, right? Usually you can hear Nick playing along tunefully in the distance. Andy, Magload should have a stand at the shooting show. Yes, we talked about it. We really want to. It's a big show for us to do, and it's about, firstly, it's about time. Shows absolutely kill us. It's not just the weekend. It's a good week or two prior, building up stock and getting stuff ready and prepping the table and stand and all that. And it's at least a week or two afterwards in terms of getting everything back to where it should be, back on the shelves, restocking and all that. And like, I love the British Shooting Show, and it's, we will have a stand there, and it's not this year, hopefully next year. It's a big commitment for us. It's a big time sink. And ultimately, it's not our target market. It is getting a bit more practical, a little bit more of our market, but it is still predominantly, game and clay shooting and outdoor and vermin and sort of field sports, as it were. 100% we will always be at the target shooting show, that's the one show that we will never not be at, because that is the target market. That's, you know, that show was created initially for practical shooting and then ventured out for more general target shooting. And the Northern Shooting Show, we've done that one, I think we've done that once, maybe twice now. We will probably do that. It's less of a commitment for us overall, so we will try and do that this year. Actually, I need to speak to Paul about that if we are going to go. But yeah, the British shooting is just a big commitment for us at the moment, both financially and time. And February is when things start getting busy for us. Although saying that, the busiest point of the year is usually Black Friday, and we did the target shooting show right before that. But it was fine because we weren't that busy then. We weren't that busy at the target shooting show. It was just the 2 months afterwards. Oh my God. And then I got COVID to just cherry on top. Like, oh, you think you're chilled now? You think you can have a bit of COVID? Fuck you. Try the Double Punk IPA. Yeah, so this is sorry, I didn't give my beer review. Hazy Jane, a good solid beer. If you want to get swiffy, there is the double hazy and even the triple hazy, which is pretty much just lighter fluid at that point. Still very tasty though. Yeah, it's a triple. I think it's like 12%. It's like 12 or 30. It's incredible. The double hazy, I think, is like 8%. It's a dipper, double IPA. But yeah, the Hazy Jane, good solid beer, can highly recommend. The Double Punk IPA, I don't think I've had. I've had a lot of punk, but not necessarily the Double Punk. Chili the Dog, very, very good point in terms of the UK PSA competition. Well, I always say the UK PSA matches, the matches are run by the clubs, you know, so Scottish Championship is run by it's hosted at the Galloway Small Arms Club, and it's the Carlisle, there's like 2 clubs involved. Bad example. The Coats of Iron is run by Rossendale and is hosted at the North Coast Butts. The home counties, I think, is run and hosted by the North Coast Butts. The Welsh is hosted at the Llanbradach Pro Shoot range and is run by the Pro Shoot Firearms Club. So it's the clubs that put these on, and that's why they need a bit of props in terms of the time and effort and energy that they put in. But it's also the but it's under the UK PSA. They're UK PSA registered matches, so that's where it comes. But anyway, you can go to any UK PSA registered match and spectate. I would always recommend dropping the organisers an email first and just double checking. But there's no reason, as long as you've got eyes and ears in terms of eye protection and ear protection, there's no reason that you can't go and watch and experience yourself. And if I still haven't convinced you to overcome any fears to go and sign up and take part yourself, then perhaps a halfway house is actually going and watching a match, going and speaking to competitors and range staff and getting a taste of it, so that you're maybe a little bit more prepared. I mean, hopefully it's part of the reason that I do it, that you can see in the videos what the sort of setup is, what you can expect. So, or maybe I need to do a dedicated video on that, actually, like show you the sign-ins, show you gun check, getting to your first stage, a stage brief, your walkthrough, things like that. Maybe, I don't know, let me know if you'd be interested in that. Is there a junior UK PSA or comps for just under 20s? No, there's no. As far as I'm aware, there's no specific under 20 competitions, but they do have the junior category, which is, I think, up to 21. So again, the UK PSA are putting a big push into getting young shooters in there. So there's loads of junior divisions. Well, in every competition that you go and shoot at, there will be a junior division. There are prizes to be won for juniors, so it's not like you're competing against 30, 40, 50-year-olds that have been doing it for 20 years. There will be a category, and this is the really nice thing about the structure of IPSC. you have all the different divisions, so everyone within a division is on a level playing field, and then you have all the other different sort of categories. So you obviously have male, female, man, woman, what's it called? Lady. They call it. There's a ladies category. There's obviously the overall category within division, in division, and then you have senior, super senior, and I think there's even a super senior, and there's junior. So within all of those different categories, there's something for you to be competing at and competing on, and people to be competing against on your own level. Because of course, if a 6-year-old competing against a 20-year-old should in essence be able to beat them quite easily. So they have a super senior category, and then it means that all the super seniors can compete against all the different super seniors, and all the ladies can compete against all the ladies, and all the juniors can compete against all the juniors. The only issue is if you're like 30-year-old and you're a guy and you're no good, then you're not going to win anything. So yeah, it sort of sucks if you're in that category. What's the recommended cartridge load for practical? 30 or 32 gram 6.5s, I think. Or 6 or 6.5s. But in terms of grammage, 100% from my personal. I don't actually. Maybe I should. I don't pay attention to the second bit, but in terms of going for like a 28, 30, or 32. Obviously, you want to be shooting the lightest cartridge possible, but you also want the gun to be super reliable. And personally, I would be looking. I know like the Elite Alpha Elite is 28, and that is what I use. So I actually use 28, but depending on the gun, depending on your setup, really you can't go wrong with a 30 or 32, or even I'm pretty sure Alpha Elite is 28. Elite. Oh, can't. They really need to work on their SEO here. They're a 28 gram 7.5. I think. Oh no, that's old. God, do you think it would be like SEO? And it's not even their page. Let's have a look at the specs. Oh, this is blown to hell. They need to work on their SEO. Clay loads, I guess. Alpha Elite, here we go. So this is the stuff that I currently use. By no means do I think it's perfect, but it was developed specifically for practical, and I think it's arguably the best out there for practical. And it is a 28 7.5. So like 28 you can get away with things like a Benelli M2. You can run a 28 in it all day long in like an M3K or an M3000. A 28 gram load in those guns will run no problem at all. For like a Beretta 1301 and open guns, highly recommend, from my experience, running a 30 or 32. Again, you want to not necessarily go for the highest out there, because your shot to shot, your fatigue and all that sort of stuff will be affected. But yeah, like just shoot standard or potentially modified. Buy an M2, trick it out, and shoot 28 grams. You'll be fine. But for pretty much anything else, 30 grams. You lost the garage channel. Do you want to talk about cars? I'll talk about cars. 28 gram 7.5 is ample with a tight choke, depending on target distance and choke constrictions. Yeah, no, I agree. It's a good round. Compex, no Compex. Don't do it. Just Compex is what you give your girlfriend because you don't want to get them, you don't want them to have a sore shoulder when they shoot some clays. It's not a practical round. Like, don't use it. My experience of Compex has never been good. Right, I'm gonna get on to another topic that I wanted to touch on this evening, which is privacy. Now, I was contacted by I think the treasurer of a certain club. I'm not going to name names or name the club, and they got in contact saying that they were concerned that Google had listed their club on Google Maps. So I sort of want to put like a public service announcement out there that if your club is particularly worried about security and having your location put out there, make sure, have a check and make sure that it's not on Google. Now, Google will remove your will remove the flag, will remove the location if you ask them, because it's based on security, right? Because they don't want the reliability that they put a big red flag where the range is and somebody uses it to break, to find where the range is, break into it and steal a load of guns. So if you ask Google, you can request it to be removed, but it's something for you to be aware of. Now, what I told this person, and this is purely my stance on it, and a club is perfectly entitled to their stance on it and to do what they want. It's their club. My stance is that I want every range and club to be on Google Maps, right? I know there's security implications for it. You are effectively putting up a big red flag for somebody to come there and sort of take all the guns. But that's why we have Home Office guidance on security measures. That's why, your armory and safes and security needs to be up to a certain standard to be able to fend off potential attacks. Now, yeah, of course, you want to try and prevent those attacks in the first place, but the issue with this sport ultimately is because it can be very insular at times and very difficult to find clubs and ranges. And I think there's a lot of people out there that if they only knew that there was a range 5-10 minutes down the road from them, they'd be getting into the sport. They'd be, the amount of times I see comments and get emails and I have conversations with people where they say there's just no point. Like, I want to get into shooting, I want to get my certificate, but my nearest range is an hour and a half away, so I can't, I just can't do that, so there's no point. Now, I'm sure there are places in the UK where it is an hour and a half away to get to your range. But I think in a lot of these cases, they just don't know that there's ranges nearby. I lived literally up the road from where I used to live, like a 10-minute walk, and I could have been at a range. It took a good 5 years after getting into shooting to learn that it was there, and it was only through word of mouth, right? And it's because they don't publicize themselves, they don't advertise themselves, they're not on Google Maps. And again, perhaps the club has taken that stance that they don't want to be, they want to, keep secret and keep hidden. Unfortunately, that always hinders the growth of the sport. So I do think it's a massive balance. I can see it from both sides. I can understand it from both sides. But yeah, the person that got in contact wanted me to sort of put it out there so that if anybody, they do want to take a very private and very secure approach to the location of their range, which they're entitled to do so, then check that Google hasn't automatically put it up there, because Google is very, very intelligent, very smart, a lot of AI involved, and even though you think the information might not be out there online, there are ways that Google can pick up on things and automatically put a flag there. So if you want to keep it secret and secure, just double check it's not on Google, or even Facebook. Sometimes Facebook, pages or locations can be created. But personally, I think on the flip side, if you're a club and you're a range and you don't mind the location being put out there, then go and put it on Google. If you want more members, if you want more shooters, you want more people there, go and put it on Google so people can find you. Because it's like, what do people do? They go onto Google and they go, they type in their shooting range, right? And then let's say I lived in Bracknell, right? You're gonna go to Google, you're gonna type in shooting range. Okay, probably a bad example because it's right by Bisley and that's quite easy to get to, but you can start having a look, and I can guarantee there are. Oh, it's because let's redo that search. I want to find like a blank spot. Like, yes, I can guarantee there is a shooting range and club in this area here, right? So let's just say you live in Cheltenham, right? And you're looking, well, I want to join a club. Well, my nearest one's over in Swindon. You know, not the end of the world, but it's still probably far further than people want. There's going to be more clubs, there's going to be more ranges around there. So it's a brilliant way for people to be able to find clubs and get into the sport. So I would, if you don't mind the location of your range and club being out there, put it on Google, put it on Facebook, put it out there. If you want it to be quiet and secretive, then check it isn't out there, because Google and Facebook can do what they like sometimes. Anyway, oh, Chris, I like cars. I have a Mark 1 RS6, very nice, currently broken gearbox, shot color. I was going to say, that's usually like the natural state of one of those, isn't it? But yeah, thank you everyone for watching today. Before you all go, if you haven't already, hit that like button, make sure you're subscribed. I think it's been a good one. I don't know why the trepidation of people on this topic. I think it's genuinely something that needs to be talked about, people need to be aware of that if it happens to you. So again, make sure you have insurance. That is really the biggest takeaway from this evening and this conversation, is that if you have legal expense insurance, if you have an organization that you can go to for support and guidance, it doesn't matter what happens. It doesn't matter if you voluntarily surrender the guns. It doesn't matter if you have a revocation to a certain extent. It can all be fixed. You can go to appeal, you can go to court, you can get solicitors involved, and you can get an organization to help you. So that's only possible really, unless you're going to fund it yourself, if you have legal expenses insurance, to get that insurance. But yeah, a big thank you for everyone joining this evening. I hope it's been entertaining and enjoyable. Make sure you like and subscribed. There'll be a video out, I think either Monday or Tuesday next week. Not entirely sure what it's going to be yet, but I've got a couple in the works that will be coming out. But there will definitely be a video, and of course we will be doing another live stream next Thursday, 7:30 p.m. UK time. But yeah, again, thanks for watching. I hope you all have a fantastic week and get lots of shooting in. A big happy new year once again, and of course everyone, hope to see you soon.